Hi everyone, Ollie here. Welcome back to the channel once again. Now, this is going to be a little debrief video because, as you may or may not be aware, myself and a group of my colleagues ran an event under the MedSchoolForAll banner. So the event was called the MedSchoolForAll MMI Day 2018, MMI being multiple mini interview. And as I say, this video is just going to be a bit of a debrief, so it's a chance for me to talk through what that all means, the things that I just said, what we actually did as part of the day, the process by which all these things got achieved, how the day went, what the outcomes were of the event, and what I learned and what I think we learned as a team moving forwards, and then vision for the future. So firstly, what did we do? What was the whole point? So the MMI day, what our goal was is that we between us, we sort of sat down and thought as a group, look, when it comes to getting into medical school, and there are obviously several selection stages of getting into medical school, so you have things like having the correct A-levels, then you have to pass the UKCAT exam or a similar entrance exam to a particular standard, and then on top of that you'll usually face an interview. And there are obviously these several stages of selection, and at every stage you can pay for help. So there are you can obviously get a private tutor during your A-levels, you can pay for UKCAT coaching, and you can pay for interview coaching as well. But what you find is that if you look at a lot of these courses, particularly if they're run by larger professional bodies, they are inordinately expensive, basically, for private help. And they do have good outcomes, these courses, you know, they will tout their own statistics very well, and they'll say, you know, 80% of our delegates that attend this course get a place at medical school, and so on. But I feel, and I think it's fair to say I can speak on behalf of our team, they feel as well that a lot of these courses are quite, not predatory, but they're very, very expensive. You know, you could be looking up to hundreds of pounds for a decent course, which might take a day or a couple of days. And what this basically means is that some groups, so people from just basically less well-off families, and there are obviously lots of cultural reasons and political and economic reasons that might play into different groups of people being in these situations. The rub is that certain groups will not be able to afford the private tuition, and this basically leads to those groups being underrepresented in medical school, and then obviously in the medical community later on, because you've got that reduced throughput. So what we decided to do was we were going to run a day of interview preparation and tuition completely for free, and target it at these sorts of groups. So there's a lot to unpack there. So the day itself would be free in terms of we would cover the cost of transport to get the delegates to the event. We would provide free lunch on the day, and the entry itself to the event would be free as well. So zero basically net cost, or as close to zero cost as we can get for our delegates to come to this event. This is being targeted, and it was targeted at sixth form students, so that's people in year 12 or year 13, so they're between kind of 16 and 18. But to make sure that we were kind of aiming this at the correct group of people, we recruited our delegates from schools in the Coventry and Warwickshire area. We're obviously at Warwick Medical School, which is itself in the Coventry postcode area. We took our list of schools that we would invite delegates from schools that fell under the university's widening participation scheme, and there are a multitude of characteristics that might allow different places to fall under these schemes, but some examples of criteria that these definitions use are things like BME background, lower socioeconomic status, education level of parents in terms of whether they went to university or not, if you're from a low participation neighbourhood to higher education, things like that. So then once we'd worked out that this was the way by which we were going to invite students to come, we then reached out to those schools and said, you know, we have this many places on the day, We would like to invite your students to come along, and then we kind of booked them all in and got our guest list ready for the day. So just to recap over all of that, it's a widening participation exercise. That's what we ran the day as. Widening participation means bringing medical school entry and the resources that are likely to get these kids into medical school, bringing those resources and that effort and that time and that money to kids basically that would not normally receive it. That's kind of the simplest way of looking at this, I think. Originally this was planned to be for 96 kids. We ended up running the day with 72 places available. This was just because of technical limitations, but I'll get into that now when I talk about what we actually did. So what was the day? So I can actually show you. This was the day. I'm so happy with the way these booklets came out. So our timetable for the day was in the morning we just had a welcome talk, and then we opened with a talk from Dr. James Gill, who is an ex-Warwick Medical student, now a GP in the area, who was recently on The Island with Bear Grylls, which many of you may have seen, many of you won't. I do recommend watching it, only because Dr. Gill's a really good guy and you should go and support him. But he did a talk on like life beyond textbooks, basically what a career in medicine can get you, and he's had all these kind of weird and wonderful adventures, so it was all about that. Then we split all the groups, all the kids down into smaller groups, so a quarter of them would go off and have their practice multiple mini interview. That's an interview split over 6 or so stations, so we had 6 on the day, 6 stations of 10 minutes each, including feedback, where you'll be asked to perform a series of tasks or have a series of conversations in separate rooms. That's basically what an MMI is. It's the more common way of interviewing medical candidates now, because it's seen to address assessment of more characteristics and more useful things to assess than a traditional panel interview would allow. So some of them would go off and do that. Some of them would receive some anatomy teaching. So we had 2 of our committee members, Ollie and Chris, who were leading this session, and 3D4Medical, who make the program Complete Anatomy 2019 and Complete Heart and their whole slew of fantastic apps. They provided us with permission to actually use Complete Heart on the day, so we could give the students like a 3D guided tour of the heart. And we chose the heart because it's covered in A-level biology. You do the basic kind of mechanics and the conduction system, so we thought, right, we'll revisit the stuff that they've already done, but do it in this cool 3D model simulation way, and then add in some clinical stuff on top of it. We also had clinical skills teaching, so Emily on our committee is an A&E nurse by trade before she came to medical school, so she was the perfect person to have leading this session. That was doing some kind of vital signs assessments with the kids and showing them how to do, you know, how to take basic pulses, how to take a blood pressure, things like that. We wanted things that weren't going to be so complicated as to kind of make anyone uncomfortable or disillusioned, but stuff that you could go home and do by yourself, and you know, go home and see mum and dad and like, look what I learned, you know, this is actually useful, being able to take a radial pulse or a carotid or whatever. There were a couple more sessions on top of that. So we had Dr. Louise Davis from Warwick Medical School. She's actually the head of AC1, Advanced Cases 1, the block that I've just finished. She gave a talk on success in medical school, and we really wanted to focus there on kind of good practices, study tips, but also how to look after yourself, because even as a graduate, you know, someone who's already been through university once, when I came to medical school, and I think most of my colleagues will agree with me, it really, like, it's a punch in the gut to your system is being hit with the demands of medical school. It's so cognitively different to anything you've probably ever tried to do, that we wanted to focus on giving them those skills to allow them to look after themselves properly while meeting the demands of the course and doing all the things they want to do. Then we had Emily Reed, who is the Senior Careers Consultant, I believe that's her title at Warwick Medical School, who is a genuinely fantastic human, handles all the application processes for all the medical students who are applying for foundation program and academic foundation, and without Emily's help, the day as it stands would not have run. I'll go into more as to why shortly. She gave a talk on medical careers, careers being kind of one of her many areas of expertise, and it was just wanting to lay out, like, now, you know, you're coming to medical school, what happens after that, talking about the foundation program and training programs and just things like that, giving them that long distance view, because I feel like it's something even at medical school we don't have a fantastic grasp on, but I feel like giving people that long-term goal, something to aim for, if they have it in their head as a 16-year-old, you know, I want to be a pediatric cardiac surgeon, actually just showing them the path by which, you know, the very long and arduous and winding path that they could take to get there. I personally think that if I'd had that when I was 16 or 17, it would have really solidified my grasp on exactly what I did want to do. And then lastly, we had the student panels. So in these, it was a mixture of students, and they changed throughout the day, but basically they were talking about the different ways into medical school, because it's a kind of stark reality, unfortunately. I believe this statistic is something like 60% of people who apply to medicine from year 13 will get 0 offers. It's something ridiculous like that. It's so competitive. So what we really wanted to instill was that even if you don't get in, don't worry, the odds are kind of against you anyway. So here's a quick overview of all the ways you can potentially get into medical school, including things like graduate entry medicine. What should you do if you don't get in? Is it better to take a year out? Should you go and do another degree? You know, if you don't get in after your degree, even to grad entry medicine, as a lot of people don't, you could then go and do a master's, or you could go and work for a year. It was just basically focusing on these long-term resilience skills, and interview etiquette was the other half. I wasn't in the room, but having looked at the presentations, that's what it seems to be on. So the whole focus of the day, and I haven't said this yet, but was trying to build the confidence of our delegates, that ability to believe, yes, I can do this, it is achievable for me, even though it might be more difficult for these delegates because of the background than even just people at the status quo. We really wanted to instill that self-worth, that confidence, that belief that they can do it. And the reason for that, or the reason I was so keen to press for that, is that even when I've been doing practice interviews with people for grad entry medicine, I personally think the biggest obstacle is still confidence. You know, some of the best results that I've had with people, or the best turnarounds that I've seen, if I've done multiple practice interviews with people, is just, you see that light come on, that I do really want this and I believe I can do it, so I'm going to do the steps I can take to get there. So those are kind of the things that the delegates actually got up to on the day, and then the day ended finally with a talk from Dr. Josie Huff, who is one of the clinical education fellows at Warwick Hospital, which I have not actually been for a rotation there, but I was told the Kefs at Warwick were really nice and would probably speak for us, so I emailed out. Josie came back to me and gave a talk on her medical career so far, the ups and downs of med school, and what's coming next for her. We got these really, really nice, I don't know whether you can see these very well, but these really nice printed booklets available for the day, because we were really keen for this to look as professional as humanly possible. So we've got our committee up at the top here with my ugly mug up at the top. We've got our volunteers list, a very, very lovely colour timetable, which was Ryan's doing on our committee, my housemate Ryan. It just came out so well. This is a question bank for the delegates that they can take home with them. The idea with that is they can just have their friends and family ask them some of these questions, because they're really good medical interview fodder and really good for reflective thinking. We then have this, which is all about the 4 pillars of medical ethics, which is absolute must-know material for medical interviews. And then these are just some kind of ethical principles, talking about things like Gillick competence, Fraser guidelines, again, just the stuff that you should probably learn for a med school interview. And on the back, actually, you can see the sponsors that we got. So the way this was done was literally by me just emailing and saying, this is what we're doing, can we have some money? I haven't talked about the time frame over which we managed to build this conference together, but it was like 7.5, 8 weeks, something like that. We sat down and said, we are going to run this event this year, and the staff from the medical school were really on board. Everyone's been really supportive, and in that short time, when we've been busy with AC1 ourselves and getting used to clinical medicine now, we've managed to put this together in that time. And without these sponsors here, so we've got the MDU, Warwick Medical School put some money in under a new fund that's just become available. They encouraged me to apply for it. I did apply and they gave us some money. The Royal College of Surgeons, just an amazing name to have on there. Obviously any of the Royal Colleges, but particularly one as an aspiring surgeon, that does mean a lot that they'd be involved. And Geeky Medics as well. If any of you aren't familiar with what Geeky Medics is, it's a platform that provides a lot of free online study resources. They're particularly well known for their OSCE videos on YouTube, and I emailed them saying what we were doing just because I was a fan of what they do and I thought they might be interested. And actually Lewis, who's the guy, I think he's one of the founders or the founder, I'm not sure how many of them there are on the team, but he pledged £50 to run the day, just because he said, you know, we don't have a lot of money, but I really believe in what you're doing. So that was lovely, actually, that interaction. And then down here we have groups that, while they couldn't sponsor us with money, they provided us with other materials, and this was a huge thing for us, actually, and I'll talk about that in a sec. So you can see we've got the Royal College of General Practitioners, the Royal College of Radiologists, Médecins Sans Frontières, I think, or Doctors Without Borders, as they're known internationally, and 3D for Medical, as before, who, disclaimer, I am a representative for at Warwick Medical School, provided us the ability to use Complete Heart in the anatomy teaching session. And the reason that I'm talking about sponsors now is that we really wanted a professional looking event day, and so actually everyone came through for us really well. These are the drawstring bags, I actually can't get them all in frame, but Royal College of GPs, you can probably see, have the logo on? Yep, at the top. Royal College of General Practitioners bags. So I'm just going to open up and show you some of the things that they got inside. So we've got a collection of pens, we've got some cool syringe ones, Royal College of Radiologists pen, I think that's a GP one. We've got loads of careers booklets as well, so we've got GP, radiology, oncology. We just wanted to get, you know, the ideas. These are some of the careers you can do once you get into medical school. Here is what the future might look like for you. We were able to include either a copy of so this document Without Borders or Dispatches magazine, so MSF's kind of promo material, just to show what they've been up to, and we thought a lot of people find wilderness, emergency, global health stuff really interesting. So again, it was great to have MSF on board supporting. Got some little notebooks here, so we've got one Discover GP, and then Royal College of Radiologists provided these little notebooks, which are actually amazing once you get into medical school, these little pocket-sized notebooks, because you can take them on the ward. The Royal College of Radiologists sent a load of memory sticks as well, which was unbelievable. I unfortunately don't have any left to show you because we gave them all to our delegates on the day because they were the ones that should have them. But that was a really cool thing. And then we've got stickers, both from MSF and Geeky Medics as well. And then obviously they all came in this nice blue drawstring bag. They all got the nice booklet that I showed you before. And then everyone got a lanyard. We tried to go all out. This is kind of a label with no name on it, obviously for privacy reasons, but just to show you, so everyone got a lanyard as well. They got the nice booklet, they got the bag. I think within our limited budget, we were operating within a budget of about £550 that's been raised through our sponsors. I think we've managed to do an awful lot, and obviously we gave them a big lunch on top of that as well. The next thing I want to talk about is how well did we actually do. So we needed a way obviously to measure the impact that we were or weren't having with the students that came, because we needed to know if this was a useless exercise. Basically there's no point in doing it again, or equally if it's really good we kind of need to do it again. So all the delegates were given a form to fill out before the day and then at the end of the day, and we asked them basically to score their confidence on a number of things. So this might be talking about how confident do you feel about going into a medical interview, how much do you know about the qualities you might need to be a doctor, how confident do you feel answering interview questions? All these slightly different dimensions along you can have your own confidence, and we used these metrics as a way to measure the impact of our day, and that data is still being processed, and actually we're hoping to publish once all the processing is done and take it to medical education conferences and things like that. But what I can say is, at least from a preliminary very quick scan of the data, we have managed to make a significant contribution to confidence across every single factor that we chose to measure, which is just a fantastic result. I really couldn't have asked for anything better from the day. The only one in which we made a very meagre contribution to was their actual motivation to keep going towards studying medicine. So all that really tells us is the people that were there for the day really wanted to be doctors, and we did improve it a tiny bit, but after the day they still really wanted to be doctors. So that was that. The next thing, this is getting a bit more nitty gritty. We had a debrief afterwards. We made sure that our entire team, I'd say our team structure, 7 committee members, but then we had about 40 or 50 volunteers from the medical school as well, just medical students who had given up their time. We did feed them, but we weren't paying them. They got a certificate to say they were helping out, but everyone felt really passionately about what we were doing. So they were doing everything from doing admin behind the scenes. They were the interviewers on the MMI circuit. They were helping out with the practical skills sessions. They were doing photography, videography. There was just everyone really mucked in. But that does bring me nicely back to talking about our debrief. So we all sat down immediately after the event at the end of the day, and we hashed out what went well, what are we going to improve, because some things did go wrong. There were logistical problems that were in very large part my fault as the person who was supposed to be orchestrating things. And ultimately what this comes down to, like, there were a lot of problems. Most of them stemmed from poor organisation, and this all stems from me, I think, historically having been a bit of a, like, I'm going to use the word control freak. That's, you know, that's maybe the best way of putting it, on micromanager or whatever. But my approach to problem solving in the past, even when working in teams, is if I think I can solve a problem by myself, I will usually prefer to do it by myself, only because then I'm sure that it gets done, and it gets done to whatever arbitrary standard I want to set on it. And I'm quite proud of my work when I do things, and so I always wanted things to be, you know, as high a standard as I could make them, and I would put in obscene hours sometimes into doing that. But what this event has been really good, or what it's shown me, is that when you actually scale up operations, and you scale up beyond the point where the number of tasks you yourself can do is too big to be feasible, that is actually very detrimental to the whole operation. So a lot of the tasks that were involved, I just chose to do myself, in terms of sorting out the sponsors and organising the volunteers and all this, things that I really should have been delegating. And because I had this very kind of self-centered, narcissistic view in my head that no, it needs to be done perfectly, it needs to be done to this amazing standard, because I wasn't delegating properly and I wasn't making the most of the team and the resources I had, things actually went wrong that should not have gone wrong, with more prior planning, which could have been done very easily if I just distributed the workload earlier. And people were champing at the bit to take on jobs. They really wanted to be involved, but I was kind of keeping a grip on everything. That was to the detriment of the event, and if I hadn't behaved like that, the event may have been even better. And I think ultimately the way I would put it is that what I was doing before, or well, what I was doing this time but I will not do again, but what I have done before when I've been involved in projects like this and choosing to take on a lot of burden myself, that's not leadership. That's something more like martyrdom. A good leader should absolutely be able to delegate tasks, because that's the whole point of having a team. Having a team that is competent and you can trust as a leader means that you can achieve exponentially more, obviously, than you could by yourself. The larger your team is, the more you can delegate, You as a leader obviously have to put in more effort to managing the team properly, but that's why you have a team and you don't do it by yourself. If you try and micromanage everything, you're not leading. It's just you're essentially doing it by yourself to the detriment of other people. And ultimately, obviously, if it was a business, that would be clients. In the case of this event, that was the delegates and that was these kids. Because I chose to keep such a tight grip and a tight locus of control on everything, what I was doing was actually to the detriment of them. I was serving no one by behaving that way except myself, because of this kind of self-aggrandizing obsession with it. What I should have been doing is thinking, how can I maximize the opportunity that we're bringing to these kids, because that's the point of the day. And that's hard, obviously, for someone who's used to behaving that way, where I haven't had to face consequences for it before. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance that comes out, but I can safely say, having seen how amazing the team was and how good our volunteers were, just so competent, that's the word I would use. I 100% trust my team to do what I ask them to do, if it even is me running it next time. But it really has changed my perspective. Whenever I do anything like this again, my attitude will be completely different, just because, even if for nothing else, the stress that it puts you as one person under, the undue pointless stress because you poorly managed it yourself, it took a lot out of me, actually. Just in the aftermath of the event, it legitimately took me about 3 days to recover. My brain was just like melted. I hadn't slept virtually for sort of 2 or 3 days before the event. I was maybe getting 4 hours a night in the days leading up to it. On the day of the event, I got 1 hour and 3/4 at best of sleep, just because there was still way too much to do, and that was my own fault. It shouldn't have been that way. So good learning experience for me. So very quickly, because this has already gone on way too long, what comes next? So MedSchoolForAll is the entity that we've set up that is going to manage the running of this conference, or this event, these MMI prep resources. What we want to do is do some pilot runs with local schools where we can go in and run circuits ourselves. The online interview practice that I've talked about before, that's going to be done through this platform. So the idea is that if you're wanting to apply to med school, you can simply book through our online portal system that's being set up, and you can arrange an interviewer. You can tailor it to either where you're applying or the sorts of things you want to practice on, and you'll just get a one-on-one kind of hour-long go at answering some interview questions with one of our team who are all trained, and we just want to facilitate your getting in, basically. When I was running them just through my YouTube channel and through PostGradMedic before, genuinely I had some fantastic conversations with some of you, and a very large chunk of you I've been able to happily see get into medical school, and that's amazing. And I look forward to working with some of you, obviously, when we're all hopefully doctors one day. That's going to mean reaching out as well to facilitate all this to you guys at other universities. I had some internal logistical problems in the end in getting external medical students involved. It's just an unfortunate thing that had to happen, but I think the plan is to look at having representatives of this program at other medical schools, so we can provide you resources and you can deliver these sessions yourselves, across different geographical areas to serve these kids that need this help around where you are, so then we can distribute it across the entire UK eventually. Lofty ambitions, we've got a ton of work left to do, but it's genuinely been one of the best things that I've ever been involved with personally. We had an amazing team, an amazing volunteer. We had an amazing team, an amazing list of volunteers, and I think the kids got a lot out of it as well, or at least looking at the data, it looks like they did. So thanks very much for watching, guys. This has been a really long, rambly video, but I just wanted to do this as kind of a video reflection, just to show you what I've been up to, what all that work has been leading up to that I was talking about before, and just to let you know kind of how well it went, how proud I am of all of you that were involved, and yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think. Take care, and I'll see you soon.